Evening, everybody, and welcome to this debate with the candidates for Mandan School Board. My name is Caitlin McDonald, and I am a volunteer with the League of Women Voters, and I will be your moderator this evening. This debate has been organized and the questions developed by the League of Women Voters, the Bismarck Tribune, the Bismarck-Mandan Chamber EDC, AARP of North Dakota, and Dakota Media Access. There are 4 candidates running for election for Mandan School Board's 3-year terms, and there are 2 seats. All candidates have joined us today. They are Rick Horn, Maureen Warner, Caroline Kozed, and Amy Shenandoah. Thank you for being here this evening. Our purpose tonight is to provide voters with information about the candidates and their positions on issues that impact the citizens of Mandan. The candidates have not received the questions in advance. To our viewers watching this debate live on April 29th, you may submit questions by texting LWV Bisman 152 to 22333 to join the texting session. Then you text your question. Please keep the text brief as there is a character limit. Now, tonight, the debate format will be as follows. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to make an opening statement, and then after the opening statements, the candidates will respond to the questions. The first response to questions will be rotated between the candidates, and then each candidate will have 60 seconds to respond to each question. After each candidate has responded to the question, there'll be up to 3 additional minutes allowed for debate or additional comments from any and all candidates. After the final question, each candidate will then have another 60 seconds to make a closing statement. Candidates are asked to please comply with our time restrictions so we can get to as many questions tonight as possible. Our timers will let you know when your responses are down to 30 seconds, then 10 seconds, and then you'll see a sign to stop. For the 3-minute debate segment, they will indicate when we are down to 1 minute, and then they will indicate when to stop. Now, let's get to our candidates this evening. Each of you will now have 60 seconds to make an opening statement. Rick, would you like to go first?
Yes, I would. I'm running for another term on the Mandan School Board because I'm committed to this community and to our children. I've had the honor and the privilege of serving for nearly 10 years on the school board. I've also been involved with the Finance and Facility Committee, which is part of one of the committees of the school district. I've been on that one for over 16 years. My financial background is a benefit, I think, to the district as we face challenges in delivering quality education opportunities with increasing limited resources. We've had 3 children that have gone to the Mandan School District and have graduated, so I believe in our schools. So, thank you.
Thank you. Maureen, would you like to respond next? Or, give your opening statement?
Yes, thank you for having us. We appreciate that. I'm Maureen Warner. I've raised 3 young men in the Bismarck School District. We've lived here for a long time. And I believe in our school and our education. We have great schools here. We have great programs here. And I would love to be a part of it.
Thank you. Caroline?
All right. Thank you so much, Caitlin, and thank you to all the sponsoring organizations for hosting this. I've been a board member for 3 terms, so for 9 years, and prior to that beginning my term as a board member, I also served on the Policy and Personnel Committee. My background is in human resources management and higher education. I teach at the University of Mary. We've been living in Mandan since 2008. We have 1 graduate of Mandan High School last year, and our daughter is graduating this spring. So I'm really running for re-election again because I want to continue to serve the community and serve our district and our students.
Thank you. Amy, would you like to make your opening statement, please?
First, I want to say thank you for this opportunity. My primary motivation for running this year is being a mother of 5 kids, 4 of them currently in elementary, middle school, and high school levels. So this is giving me a firsthand experience at all the current issues that are coming up, discussions with my children, with the education system. My background as a physical therapist gives me a great understanding of how health and wellness is strongly linked to our academic success. So I do believe in the importance of integrating fundamental knowledge about nutrition across all levels of education. By going beyond mere convenience and encouraging a deeper understanding of these elements, we can pave a way for a healthier future for everyone.
Thank you. We will now begin with our questions. This first question will begin with Maureen. Do you feel Mandan's code of conduct for high school sports is adequate? Why or why not?
The code of conduct. Yeah, I think it's adequate. I think the sportsmanship, I think the coaches do a fantastic job. The code of conduct, I think, is really good for them.
Thank you. We'll now we'll now move on to Caroline if you have a response.
Yeah, would you repeat the question, please?
You bet. Do you feel Mandan's code of conduct for high school sports is adequate? Why or why not?
Okay, so for high school sports specifically, that was the piece. I wasn't sure if I heard correctly. Yeah, I feel that it is. We've had, seen issues across the state that have come up. I think any policy that we have, the code of conduct being one, we need to, continue to look at it, renew. Is it the right thing that is it what we're actually doing? Can we enforce this? Is this what we want to see to represent our communities, is who we are? So I don't see any issues with our current code, but there's always opportunity to update and review as needed.
Thank you. Amy, would you have a response to this question?
Yeah, I feel like it's pretty adequate at this time. We just got into the high school setting with my oldest, so what I'm seeing with the ongoing reminders, we always have to be reviewing this with our children as they're going through. I think this is a good reminder for them ongoing, and I think it is adequate at the time. But like they've said too, if there's any concerns, it's a great way to address it if something would come up. So.
Thank you. Now we'll open the floor for 3 minutes if anyone would like to make additional comments. No takers on this first one. Oh,
I actually will. Yeah, I always have something to say. I think, too, that's why I asked if it was, I wanted to rehear if it was specifically for athletics, because I think sometimes those expectations of what it means to just be a good person, be a good citizen, be a good community member, it's good to be reminded of that. Sportsmanship is one way of doing that, but we need to be a good team player when we're working in organizations and working on boards down the road and things like that. So that's just what I wanted to add to that. I think it's much beyond athletics, that we have lessons to learn from having good conduct.
Thank you. And I have to apologize, my mistake. We skipped Rick getting his own response to that. I was so excited that you started things off tonight. So, Rick, my apologies, and you may give a response to that question if you'd like.
I think, as far as our code of conduct, I think is adequate. Based on, recent events, the North Dakota High School Athletic Association has put in place guidance, rules and stuff that we have to follow. I do believe our administration has taken that seriously and communicated that to our students, fans, whoever that may be. But that's always something, too, that has to be kind of monitored. The activities at the games, they can be a certain way, but you can't cross that line. And I think we do a good job of trying to make sure that our students don't go past that line, I guess, put it that way. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Would there be any other additional comments for that question? No? All right. This question will begin with Caroline. How do we address burnout for teachers?
Ooh, yeah, how do we? It's an excellent question. Again, my background is in human resources management and, having concern for engagement and commitment and burnout in any profession. But we've asked a lot of our teachers, especially in the last 4 years, being adaptable and having to change and behaviors that we're seeing increased numbers of in classrooms and in hallways. So I think, looking out for the wellness of those teachers, listening to teachers, getting feedback on what are the supports that they need and how our administrators can assist in that, and then to the extent that it comes to the board for what support we can provide.
Thank you. Amy, do you have a response to that question?
Yeah, so I feel like I agree too. The teachers have been put at numerous extensive requirements for them over the last few years. With paras in the classrooms, I know that does help, but that doesn't always solve the solution, especially when they are also required to follow certain techniques, certain things with difficult children, maybe too. One thing I find interesting is that teachers seem like they don't get a lot of time off during the year, and I get that the connection you need with the students too, but when you're always on it's always going to be harder to avoid that burnout if you can't step away if you need to. So I feel like that might be something to address, is a little bit of more time off if they needed that when appropriate, with pay if they needed that.
Thank you. Rick, do you have a response to this question?
As far as, the teachers with the burnout, I think we do need to do a good job of listening to our teachers. As was said, as far as with coming out of COVID a couple years ago, the stress everybody was under, that did cause a lot of problems. We've also, I think, as the district, we've put in place people to help in the buildings, help the staff to be there. I also think that we need to also have people in the building, kind of a mentoringship, because of not just your new teachers, but to your older teachers, seasoned teachers, put it that way, of helping everybody, getting a chance to work together and collaborate and help on that, so you don't feel like you're out on an island yourself. You got somebody to go to, I think so. I think that would help a long way too.
Thank you. Maureen, do you have a response to this question?
I do. So I do believe in mentorship. I believe having others to talk to, the seasoned teachers, like he was saying, being with the younger ones, bringing them up, self-care, promoting a self-care, listening to them, having somebody in the building who can listen to them, and just really being an advocate for them and themselves in where they need to take care of themselves mentally and emotionally.
Thank you. Now we will open the floor if anyone would like to make additional comments. All right. This next question, we will begin with Amy. Amy, what suggestions would you make to enhance the fiscal responsibility of Mandan Public Schools while balancing the community's expectation of a quality public education system?
Can you repeat that?
You bet. What suggestions would you make to enhance the fiscal responsibility of Mandan Public Schools while balancing the community's expectation of quality public education?
Well, you need to look at what the current fiscal situation is, and I feel like right now we have a good handle on the budget, but as far as suggestions, I'm not that well in depth with the financial part of everything. My background is health and wellness, not financial. So that's why I'm want to be on this board, is to learn more about that and take from the ones that have more seasoned time in the school board and enjoy their knowledge and learn from this too. So as far as suggestions, don't have any at this point.
Thank you. Rick, we have time for your response now.
Thank you. Yeah. Fiscal responsibilities, that's always a challenge because of what we are using public funds, basically. And it's trying to create that budget and trying to be responsible to the taxpayers. And I know we do try, currently on the board, we do try as far as our tax, the mills we set. We do try and set them where they have to be based on what we need and not trying to go way overboard. But that's always a challenge of finding that medium between what you need to get to achieve for your funding and what you can expect to spend it on. So,
Thank you. Maureen, your response?
Well, I think we're in agreement. You just really have to watch your budget and what you're doing. I think the board is doing a really great job with the budget and how they handle it. Suggestions to change anything. I don't have any suggestions except for keeping the eye on the budget and watching it balance and watching your spending.
Thank you. Caroline, your
All right.
response?
Thank you. So one of the suggestions that I would come up with is actually out to the community and to invite them to become more involved with our school board activities. One of the great features of our school board structure in Mandan is that we do a lot of work at a committee level. So we have a facility and finance committee whose primary role is that oversight, and Rick has served on that committee with his background. That's not my background either. So I serve on the policy personnel committee, but we ask community members to be a part of those committees, and so that's really a great avenue for community people, and they're public meetings, so even if you don't want to be a committee member, but you want to just come and hear and learn more about the fiscal side of our school district. There's the fiscal piece is very complex. I could not do the work that our business manager does. At our school board training, when you're a new school board member, you get kind of a 101 on the financials, and it's very complicated. And so having people coming in and being a part of that committee is helpful.
Thank you. We'll now open the floor for 3 minutes for any additional comments.
I have one comment as far as the committees. I just became aware of how the committees are open to the public. So I guess finding a way to get that word out there for the community more so, because I would have been very interested in being part of some of those committees, but must have missed the information. So that may be something to get out there to the community a little bit more so they can be more involved.
I was just going to say the same thing, that the community, inviting them, letting them know that they can be at these committees, the community inviting them and making them aware of that, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and I'll address the way that it's been communicated, at least the way that I first discovered it when we joined Mandan School District, that welcome back to school, and here's when your open house is. There was a packet in there, a sheet in that packet, I should say, that listed these committees, and I was looking for a way to become involved, and having, being a part of like the parent-teacher association at your school is a great way, all those different levels and things. But I'll definitely pass on to our communications team about getting that maybe advertised more beyond that. But we're just wrapping up committees now, committee meetings now, but definitely encourage people. Just call the district too to find out, and we can always send information out to folks. The other piece, if I could add, if I still have some time, about the fiscal responsibility, one of the big challenges that we have is having competitive compensation packages to recruit and retain, obviously great teachers, but also staff, those paraprofessionals that Amy mentioned. That is really, really challenging in today's market, and insurance and benefits. That's actually one of the newer committees that the district developed, was an insurance committee, because the complexity of that, and to have the employees understand their own policies and how do we improve how that money is spent, and that appreciation for the cost of those benefits, and how do we best leverage those dollars that we're spending to make sure our employees are taken care of and have resources.
I guess touch on that, because I am on the insurance committee, and that's kind of what the district did go into doing, a self-insured, just because of healthcare costs, we're going way out of line. That's one way that, as a district, we decided to try and bring those costs down, is to go into self-insured. And I think it's been successful. I know the biggest thing there is communicating to our staff kind of how it works, because it is a high deductible plan, which is different from the old one. We used to have through Sanford Insurance, but I think just part of that is communicating it too. It is working. So another part of that.
Well, lucky you. You get to start the next question here. So, all right. Well, we're going to pivot a little bit to get a question from our live audience here tonight. So, Rick, we'll begin these responses with you. How would you improve special education services for Mandan students with disabilities and for those experiencing undesirable behavior? And I'll repeat that one. How would you improve special education services for Mandan students with disabilities and for those experiencing undesirable behavior?
Well, I guess part of that is I know right now we are doing SEL, district-wide social emotional learning, trying to build relationship building in with the students and staff, and trying to get that if they've got somebody that they feel comfortable with. Usually that will help to mitigate some of those outbursts. We've also tried to build, I know, outside relationships with other agencies. So we'll bring in counselors, stuff that way, into the school system to help out that way versus having to go after school. Parents having to take them out of school or after school to go to that. So they're trying to build that relationship in the school too. So.
Thank you. Maureen, your response to this question?
Well, I don't know much about this program, but I think having passionate people who love to work with children with behaviors would be more ideal.
Thank you. Caroline?
Yeah, this is another one of those challenges. We're a part of a group of other districts for special education services, and so we have those relationships that Rick mentioned and relationships with agencies, and to the extent that we can better integrate services in the day-to-day, we have that responsibility to serve all citizens regardless of ability, disability, their socioeconomic status. So anywhere where we can continue building and growing those relationships and having the integration for those kids.
Thank you. Amy, your response to this question?
Well, I don't know all the current services that are being that are available for everyone, but I do feel like it is definitely an area that we want to make sure that we're growing, making sure that everyone's feeling safe, they have a safe space in the school. I worked in the school as a therapist for a few years too, and I know the challenges of that. So you need to make sure you're finding those passionate people that are making those connections with those children as well. So,
thank you. We'll open the floor for any additional comments. All right, thank you. We are back to Maureen with this question. How would you suggest the school district address the growing student population of Mandan?
It's a great question. Well, we are building a new school with more space, so I think that's fantastic. There's a great start right there. We've built several new elementary schools, so I think we're doing a really good job on trying to look into the future and see those students' numbers coming our way and having the space for them. So I think the schools have adequately kind of set up that and prepared for those growing numbers.
Thank you. Caroline?
Yeah, so we contract with a consultant to help us make these predictions for the growth, and they look at birth rates and they look at building rates, and they have these complicated statistical formulas that we've been really pleased with their services because they've been pretty accurate for us. And so we've been proactive, like Maureen mentioned. We've built a couple of elementary schools in the last several years that have come online. We have the new high school coming, for the board to be continuing to look for those patterns of growth in the community and see where there may be land available for where is that next school going to be? When are we going to need to shift? Changing boundaries is very painful. So to the extent that we want to reduce that possibility, but it happens. It's a growing pain.
Thank you. Amy, your response to this question?
Well, first of all, this is a good problem to have, right? The growth in Mandan with the kids and the children. But yes, with the new school, it's allowing us some of that extra growth. I know in the elementary schools, I feel like even with new schools, we are maxed out almost when we come in. So maybe finding ways to foreshadow more growth in those areas so that we maybe don't have to redefine the district lines or the boundaries for the schools as often would be maybe a step forward in that area.
Thank you. Rick, your response to this question?
Yeah, as was said, I guess the growth it's a challenge and it is a blessing. Everyone likes to have growing enrollment. You don't want to see declining enrollment. So, and kind of looking at this, kind of a little planning before this, 10 years ago, our enrollment was 3,435. This year, it's 4,326. It's 891 students increase in 10 years. They are projecting RSV with a projection of 405 students over the next 5 years. So growth is good, but growth also has a challenge to it. So trying to plan for that, as mentioned, is with the classrooms and the challenge of trying to keep our classroom sizes at an adequate spot and numbers, so we're not having too much in each class, but trying to balance that with everything else. So.
Thank you. We will open the floor up for any additional comments.
I think this, educating the public on the growth that we are seeing in Mandan into the school systems and the money that requires to educate those students. That is education piece that we need to do into the public. They need to understand there is population coming and there's expansion that needs to be done.
All right, thank you. We'll begin this round of this question with Caroline. And this is a question from our audience this evening. What is your position on the proposed measure to eliminate property taxes? How would passage impact school funding?
It would be, what's the right adjective? It would be devastating to our schools and as well as to other public services that we offer in our state. I know my own real estate taxes went up this year. My property taxes went up. It's a challenge that is personally painful, right? We don't like to see that on our own. But well, I think the intention might be good and how we can kind of ease the burden on property owners, that it might be better to look at a longer term solution. Our state, we've got good schools. We've got great support for our schools from the state. I just think we don't want to become short-sighted. And schools benefit society, and society needs that funding to help support them.
Thank you. Amy, your response to this question?
Yeah, I agree. Eliminating it completely is probably not going to be in the best for Mandan. I get it with the rise of everything, not just taxes, but everything in our world right now. People are struggling, but this is also bringing in opportunities for businesses to come into our town by our growth in our schools. So this is also going to help our community in the long run, hopefully eliminating any more rises than we have to. So, yeah.
Thank you. Rick, do you have a response to this question?
Yes, I do. The elimination of the property tax, if that did go through, I think that would be very detrimental to at least our school system, other agencies also in the state. My understanding is basically your funding would be frozen at what it is at your mills at the end of this year, and that's it. So anytime you want to trying to any kind of increase, you got to go to the state. So the state's going to dictate what you get for funding. You probably aren't going to see any kind of funding increases down the road. So how do you build new schools? You got to get a bond referendum. How do you get that to go through the state? So I don't like the idea of the state dictating at the local level what we get for our funding. So I know nobody likes property taxes. I don't like them either. But it is a part of our city, our state, everything functioning. So we just have to find a way to balance between what's good and what's not.
Thank you. Maureen, your response?
Such an interesting topic right now, this is for sure. I do know several people who do not have children but own homes, very upset that they have to pay property taxes when they don't have kids in school. Why should they pay property taxes? If we don't have, and I know that they have a plan, they say, to cover everything that we pay for with property tax. If you take away one, you have to have a way to pay for all these expenses that we do with property tax. There's got to be a plan. The plan is to go to the state, and then there's a process then to get all of everything that we may need in our districts for our schools. It's going to be a longer process. It's going to be a more difficult process. We need the income to pay for the expenses that we have. That's what property tax does. Taking it away may be a bit of an issue.
Thank you. We will once again open the floor for any additional comments on that question or others.
So with that, I guess part of what I've been told on this too is, like your cities and other areas, they can assess fees. So they could assess a fee for your water, your garbage, to cover some of those costs. As a school district, we cannot. We cannot charge any kind of fees. So otherwise, that's not making an equitable education. So we are in a different boat than would be the city as far as trying to collect any kind of funds to try and make up what the lack of funds they get from the state.
All right, thank you. For this next question, will we begin with Amy as the first response? What can the Mandan School District do to improve its service to rural residents? What can the Mandan School District do to improve its service to rural residents?
Again, I would have to review what's being offered to the rural services right now. So I guess I don't have a lot of expertise in that area of what's lacking, and hopefully we'll learn more about that while being on the school board.
Thank you. Rick, do you have a response to this question?
I think overall we do a pretty good job of providing services to our rural students. Surprisingly, the size of our district is quite large between where our buses have to drive. When they go down south to up north, we cover a large area. And I think for the most part, we try and do the best we can. Trying to keep the rural and the in-town kids. I mean, you got to treat them almost the same too. You can't do services just for the rural. You got to try and balance between the two of them too. So,
thank you. Maureen, your response?
Well, as growing up as a rural kid, riding the school bus for an hour and a half one way, I don't think we have, I'm not sure of any issues that we have addressing the rural children. The only problem that I could think of would be an issue is a lack of bus drivers, perhaps. That would be the biggest problem that I see. Otherwise, I don't see any problems. It would just be the lack of bus drivers.
Thank you. Caroline, your response?
Thank you. Yes, Maureen, that's what I was going to bring up too. A number of years ago, the district outsourced our busing with Harlow's. We have a contract with them. And every year to do that big push for recruiting for bus drivers. I don't know if it'll be for me in my encore career someday to learn to drive a big bus, but, and I feel for those kids when you said you had an hour and a half each way. That's like, going uphill both ways to and from school, literally. It's definitely a challenge if we have enough bus routes so kids aren't on the bus for such a length of time. I think one of the things our district has done that we've been really good about is with our technology, that if we've had storm days, they haven't had to miss school, or we haven't had that pressure of getting those buses out on the roads when it may be dangerous, because we have devices. If we see a storm that's being predicted, make sure your device comes home with you and we can have those virtual learning days. I think that's helping serve everyone.
Thank you. We'll open the floor for any additional comments or debate there.
I agree with the bus services, not just rural, but in town as well, and making sure that the kids feel safe on those routes as well, and not over capacity, because I know there's people that are riding that are maxed out on their school buses. So finding a way to limit that, it would be important.
Any other thoughts?
I know we do try and work with Harlow's in trying to provide that, but like was said, as far as the lack of bus drivers, it gets to be the issue. But also because of the amount of area we're covering, I know even in-town busing, we do try to provide when we can.
Thank you all. All right, our next question, we'll begin the responses with Rick. Rick, how can the school district recruit and retain instructional aides and paraprofessionals?
Well, I think the district has done a really good job of trying to work with that aspect. I know when I first got, I'm all about numbers, so when I go back 10 years ago, which I just find this all interesting, our starting teacher salary was $36,500. This year now, for 23-24, it's $53,800. So we've had a 47% increase in our starting teacher salary. So we made a major focus of trying to increase that base up and trying to retain and attract new teachers. Along with that, we've also other staff, we've trying to bring up their salaries. So our paras, our cooks, our janitors, trying to treat everybody the same, but trying to build that up. You know, that's a challenge. Within the funding we've got, is trying to build up that that wage for our teachers.
Thank you. Maureen, your response to this question?
Can you repeat the question, please?
You bet. How can the school district recruit and retain instructional aides and paraprofessionals?
Recruiting and retaining. Financially is going to be a big answer. And then, encouraging them with the self-awareness, the taking their time, mental breaks when they need it. But financially is going to be a big answer. You know, they're doing a lot of work for our children. They're raising our children in those schools. They see those kids for many hours, and that's fantastic. But we need to reward them for the job that they are doing.
Thank you. Caroline, your response to this question?
Yeah, this is a extremely important challenge that our district faces because we have an extremely competitive labor market. The unemployment rates in our region are very low, and so we've addressed and looked at how do we be competitive with our compensation, paying them well, so that financial aspect. And I think something too that our district has really tried to do, and to the extent that I've seen they're relatively successful, is to build a really great culture so that the paras are treated professionally, they're seen as a part of the learning team. It's, and in terms of looking for a job where you can have that teacher's schedule and, drop your kids off and then get to work and then pick your kids up after school. There's a lot of flexibility with that. For summers, I had that teacher schedule myself as a professor, so I appreciate that. But it definitely is a challenge, and to build that culture is important.
Thank you. Amy, your response?
I agree with, seeing if there's any room in the budget to increase the wages a little bit, to continue to be competitive, seeing what the surrounding areas, what they're doing to continue to recruit and retain their aides and their paras. Knowing that some of these paras also have a teacher education background too. They're not just somebody that's off the street. So taking that knowledge and rewarding them for taking these kids under our wings and helping them along. But also making sure that they have the support, because they're sometimes dealing with the most challenging kids in the school. So they're getting mentally worn down, and the burnout rate is high there too. So making sure we have that support ready for them, available in the schools that they can come to.
Thank you. We'll open the floor for any additional comments. All right, we're getting to a lot of good questions tonight. So for this next question, we'll begin with Maureen. What can the school board do to dispel rumors or disinformation that involves the school system? I can repeat that one. What can the school board do to dispel rumors or disinformation that involves the school system?
It comes down to communication with the public and educating them as to what what may or may not be going on.
Thank you. Caroline, your response?
Yes, I mean, I agree with Maureen that communication is definitely an important piece here. And serving as a board member, I've gotten phone calls, I've gotten texts from friends of, hey, we heard this is going on. What do you know? Let me find out, right? That a lot of the time it's just knowing who the right person to ask the question directly, to dispel the rumor, to find out what the truth is, and, just we call that, kind of the murmuring that may be going on, to really just get down to the truth of the matter.
Thank you. Amy, your response?
Biggest thing is just being open. People know when you're trying to hide something, so making sure that your communication is there in all levels. All avenues. People are more tech savvy, some are more paper and pen. So making sure that we're connecting with them, and don't put more fuel on the fire with the rumors. Make sure to take a step back and think about how you're going to respond to these, and maybe just saying, "Okay, I'll find out," instead of just throwing whatever you think out there. It's going to help tame all the issues that arise. So,
Thank you. Rick, your response to this question?
Yeah, I would agree. Communication is the key. As far as we do have a public information, we got a person that deals with all our communication, the good and the bad and whatever else. She does put it out there. But anything that we get as far as rumors, I know that I hear of, you always want to go to the administration or somebody that can help with communicating that. If you do get that correct text or question, like Caroline said, from somebody, you kind of want to go to Dr. Bitts or somebody up there that, as far as here's what you're hearing, what can you tell me, and then let them relay that information then to the individual as far as their concerns.
Thank you. We'll again open the floor for any additional comments.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that a lot of the time when I've gotten a question, I will even say, if I want the board to address this. Well, let's talk about what level is appropriate of who's actually going to be able to best answer that question. And that sounds like a great question for Mr. Andreessen, right? That sounds like a great question for our athletics director. Let's find out. Let's reach out. And I hope the community understands how open to communicating that our administrators truly are. Dr. Bitts will tell us stories about the phone calls that he fields and questions that he addresses. They're very good. As Rick mentioned, we have a public communications person who is actively working and not just putting out fires of rumors, but promoting the good things that are going on. That's if in a space of void, let's give them something good to talk about. That's something we've tried to do as a board too. At our meetings can be relatively short because we do a lot of that work in committees. And so to have, how are we going to fill our meeting time? Let's hear some good news about what's happening in the special education unit. Let's hear from Becky Heinert and what's happening in nutrition services. So to share the good news so we don't have this void of space to fill with rumors.
I guess that's one thing too, that as a board, we are a group of 9. So anytime we get any kind of communication of some kind of question, it's important to keep in mind that my opinion doesn't matter. It's the 9 of us that it's our opinion. So we have to take ownership of whatever is being said. So to keep in mind that I don't want to go off and say what I think or my opinion. My opinion isn't what it's going to be dictated. It's going to be the group of 9 people. And keeping that in mind.
And what I like about the board is that even Dr. Bitts is very transparent. Mr. Andreessen's very transparent. So if there are things that do arise, they're handling them and they communicate them things.
Thank you. All right, we will be back to Caroline for answering this one. What suggestions do you have for evaluating the performance of district administrators?
Oh, you're speaking my language. We just changed this. Evaluations are never really fun. I don't think anyone really enjoys their annual review, but by state law, we are mandated as a board to do kind of a pre-eval in the fall by a particular date and then a formal eval in the spring. And we had been using a form that had been developed a number of years ago that was pretty simple. We want to be able to give, there shouldn't ever be a surprise in any evaluation, that if there's an issue, a concern, a problem, let's talk about it as it's come up so we can address it. And if it's not improved, then we need to continue with progressive discipline. So we just modified that form on our policy personnel committee. It was approved by the board, and we utilized it to really have the elements of that evaluation line up very succinctly with the elements of that job description for the superintendent. So I'm really pleased with that change that we recently made.
Thank you. Amy, your response to that question?
Yeah, so I was at the school board meeting when you guys talked about the change, and I feel like as a board, they were very happy with what the changes were made for the administrative evaluation. But definitely not waiting until those evaluations, knowing that they're always going to be kind of evaluated all through the year. So if there are issues, that it can be addressed at that moment instead of waiting until the beginning or the end of the year with that. But otherwise, I think everyone's been very happy with it so far.
Thank you, Amy. Rick, your response to this question?
Yes, as Caroline said, yeah, we did change the evaluation. And I think it is kind of modeled after Dr. Bitz's job description a little bit. But like was said too, as far as anytime there's an issue with the administration, that should have been dealt with throughout the year, not at your evaluation time. But that's a good point there. As far as for that, we are required to evaluate the superintendent. As far as the assistant superintendent or the principals or athletic director, that's nothing we do. That's all done at the administration level from Dr. Bitz or the assistant superintendent, stuff like that. So our main role is the administration, is the evaluation of the administrator, superintendent.
Thank you. Maureen?
I have no suggestions into how to improve it. I think it's a fine process, and they're doing a great job.
Thank you. We will open the floor for any additional comments there. All right. This question, we will begin once again with Amy as the first respondent. How would you foster the continued development of career and technical education in Mandan schools?
Well, with the new school getting built and what they are implementing in there, I am very happy to see what they are doing to continue growth with the CTE part of it. So at this point, I feel like implementing what they're going to be is a good step forward, and seeing how those go before continuing to progress more avenues at this time.
Thank you. Rick, your response to this question?
Yeah, for CTE, yeah, this would be very exciting with the new high school to be able to offer what we've got up there. One thing that's really exciting too is we've got the Heart River Consortium that I know Caroline's on the committee with that, but that's kind of all schools in the area that are part of that and trying to then promote it throughout the area that way. I know we are going to see, I'm hoping to see leaps and bounds as far as the space they're going to have, so they're going to actually have more space for students. We actually see hopefully more students in those programs. But that new center up there is going to be nice to see.
Thank you. Maureen, do you have a response to this question?
Mandan is doing an amazing job. The school that they're building is, it's going to be fantastic for the students coming into that building. They have space, they have opportunity, and they have growth. And I think the students are going to really appreciate it, and they're going to be able to just really find their place in society even, and to understand themselves and where they may be going into the future. With this school, they'll have the opportunity to really grow themselves, and I'm really excited about that.
Thank you. Caroline, do you have a response to this question?
Thank you. This career tech education is something I'm very, very passionate about. This is an opportunity for students to see their futures, or not just for four-year schools and beyond. And I say that as a higher ed professor, that there are some kids that are going to go into agriculture, automotive technology, welding, all these different fields that have so many great opportunities for them in trade, that have great jobs. We have a great need for them in our society. As Rick mentioned, we have the Heart River CTE Center that just started this last year. So this is a group of regional schools. I'm going to miss some of the schools. I'm not naming them all, but Beulah, Hazen, Glen Ullin, New Salem, Flasher, Solon. Again, I'm missing at least a couple. But our kids in Mandan and those kids in those other schools will be able to go back and forth and share resources, and we have just a really cool opportunity, as well as to continue the programs like FFA, DECA, FBLA, FCCLA.
Thank you. Once again, we'll open the floor for any additional comments.
Something that maybe could find a connection to is connecting those that are moving in from the middle school to the high school. With all these amazing programs in the high school, I feel like the middle school's kind of falling. There's going to be a huge gap between what they're learning there to all of a sudden being thrown into the high school level. So maybe finding some way of building a bridge there that will guide them into those careers a little bit too. Maybe it's an opportunity that we can look into.
That's a great idea. I love that idea, because we ask kids pretty early on to select a path to go. Did I jump over your question? You get started with this? Okay, sorry. I wanted to mention HOSA was the healthcare students. Yeah, this CTE stuff is so cool. We had an opportunity. We had a meeting out in New Salem, and they had just gotten through funding as a result of us setting up this center. So you get additional funding from the state. You get additional reimbursement for teachers and administrators. So it's just awesome benefit. But they have a welding robot, and it is so cool. I can't wait. Like, they hadn't done the training for teachers yet, so they just kind of showed us kind of a little demo, but I'm really eager to go back and watch that robot weld. I think that would be super cool. They have virtual welding too, like virtual reality welding. So I want to try that, because I don't want to do the real thing myself. That's scary, but great opportunities for our kids in the district and beyond.
Thank you, everyone. We have time for one more question this evening, and thank you so much for your participation thus far. All right, our final question this evening, we'll begin with Rick as the first respondent, bringing it all home here. So how would you balance the diversity of parent concerns and expectations that may be presented to the board? And I'll repeat that. How would you balance the diversity of parent concerns and expectations that may be presented to the school board?
Yeah, that's always a tough one, because every parent has got their own opinion, and that's something where I think communication is the key of trying to communicate to your school principals, superintendent, just trying to discuss the aspects of it, I guess, and trying to come to some kind of balance between everybody. It's not always, you're not always going to make everybody happy. My opinion as my children is different than the opinion of somebody else's. So, but just trying to get that balance between everybody, and communication is the biggest thing. And people want to feel like they're being heard. That's the biggest thing.
Thank you. Maureen, your response?
I so agree with Rick. I mean, it is communication, and it's also, we parents have a way of raising our children, and we want to make sure that's matched in the school. And if it's not, we would like to have our voice be heard. So it's definitely communication. And I encourage parents to voice their concerns in a very positive way, so that it's, handled properly. But communication is such a big thing, and raising our children properly at home also is a very big thing. Communication.
Thank you. Caroline, your response to this one?
Yeah, I'll continue the message of communication, and the active part of that is listening. Listening to what those concerns are, and then helping guide to where the most appropriate or best level of the district to address that question or that concern. I think that's an important role that we have as a board, to understand the structure and where things are best addressed. in terms of, the expectations, we need to consider educational value and appropriateness of students, and we have policies regarding that, and we have processes for how parents can bring up concerns. But even if it's an informal email, that will get addressed, that will get answered, that will be responded to. It might not be by the board member, it might be by the superintendent or by the principal or wherever is most appropriate.
Thank you. Amy, your response?
Yeah, going back to the communication, but maybe even encouraging them, the parents that want to be heard, to be involved more, like joining those committees, maybe seeing if there's programs that we can implement to bring the board members, the school, the parents all together. And then just like as a board member too, or as our board panel, like everyone has an opinion, everybody has experience that we can thrive on and grow from and build from. So making sure that all that's taken into consideration. But as a parent too, knowing the information before you go and start spewing maybe an issue or something like that, knowing more details about it instead of just starting some rumors or some drama that's unnecessary. So big thing, communication.
Thank you. And we will open the floor for another few minutes here for 3 minutes if anyone has any additional comments. All right. Well, thank you so much, candidates. That was our last question. And now each of you will have 60 seconds to provide a closing statement if you wish. And we'll begin those statements with Maureen this time.
Thank you so much again for having us here and for allowing us to be a part of this. This has been fantastic. I'm Maureen. I raised 3 boys to the Mandan school system. I work nights and I work days. Now I have time to be a part of the functioning community. So I'm so wanting to be more a part of the Mandan community.
Thank you. Caroline, your closing statement?
All right. Thank you again to everyone for coming and watching and listening and submitting questions. I ask you to vote for me because I want to continue the work that I've been doing, working and maintaining these relationships with stakeholders across the district, across the state, with our teachers, our staff, our administrators, policymakers. I pledge to continue to ask clarifying questions. There's usually a question I have to ask. Even if it doesn't impact my vote, I still have clarifying questions. We use a lot of acronyms in education. We have really complicated structures at work that help us grow and thrive in our educational system. So I love to ask questions. And I want to, just to continue to ensure that we can offer the best we can to our district in terms of our staff, our teachers, the resources that we can have. One of the mottos that we used at the district is where the best begin, and I hope that's where we can continue to do our best work.
Thank you. Amy, your closing statement tonight.
Yes, thank you again for this evening and the opportunity. But I'm, again, feeling with all my 4 children going through the system right now on all levels, this is giving me a very forefront view of any current issues or concerns that may be arising. So feeling like that's a good way that I can bring input in. I feel like getting back to those fundamentals of our curriculum are going to be very important, especially with this ever-evolving academic life or world that we're in. It's always changing. Incorporating those core life skills in all levels of the school system, not just at the high school level, is going to help bring the individuals beyond the school walls and making them make healthy career and wellness choices. My family has deep roots in this Mandan community, and we're proud to be part of the Braves family. So I think I can be a great asset to the school board.
Thank you. And Rick, your closing statement tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We've lived here now for 27 years, been a part of this community. I've always gotten involved with whatever my children are involved with, and I think it's kind of led me now to get more involved with the school district. I think we do need to continue our efforts to attract and retain high-quality teachers and our staff. That is our major goal. We want to try to make sure our salary is competitive. I'd like to see our district continue to support our teachers and make our district an enjoyable place to work. It's been a pleasure to watch our district grow and see the progress that our students and staff have made. I'm proud of the district, and I welcome the opportunity to continue to be a board member of the Mandan School District.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to all of you once again for being here this evening. I also wish to thank Dakota Media Access, the Bismarck-Mandan Chamber EDC, the Bismarck Tribune, AARP of North Dakota, and the volunteers from the League of Women Voters for organizing this debate. Thank you to the voters for taking the time to learn more about the Mandan School Board candidates and the issues. This program will air several times on the government access streaming and television's platform and will be available for online viewing at freetv.org in the days leading up to the June 11th election. Once again, that is freetv.org. So before we close this debate, we remind you that you will need a form of identification to vote in North Dakota. You can find identification requirements and additional voting information on the websites or at the offices of your county auditor and the North Dakota Secretary of State. And for candidate profiles, please visit vote411.org. Thank you, all of you, and have a wonderful evening.